Hello. What we're going to talk about today is if you're in a divorce or a custody or a maintenance settlement, what what exactly happens with children? Children are one of the two factors that people fight about during divorces. The other one, of course, being money. But just about everything else they can settle on. But what happens to the children is important to at least one of the parties and often both. So there's only one governing criteria that you need to keep in mind when it comes to what happens to children, and that's the best interests of the child. Your interests, your partner's interests, are not what they take into account. They don't say, well, that's not fair to the husband, that's not fair to the wife. They say, what is the best thing for the child? And that's the criteria they judge everything by. So, what is actually going to happen? Um, there's only really two things that commonly happen. There's a few at the edges, but 99% of the time, one of these two things happens. Either the children get given to the mother and the father gets access. And the way that works out um, is that the mother has the children 70 to 80% of the time, and the father has the children 20 to 30% of the time. Sometimes it can be even less than that. And usually that can often be an agreement between the parties. The second thing that happens today, and this is a fairly recent development, but it's growing, is that both parties have the children in an almost equal way, so about 50-50% of the time. So in the first one, usually what happens is the mother has the children. It can be the other way around as well, and we'll discuss that, but usually the mother has the children most of the time, and the father gets the children, say, every second weekend and every Wednesday, something like that. So that's a common pattern. And then the other way to do it is that the father gets the children, or the mother gets the children from, this is for the more equal way, between Thursday and Wednesday, and then the other party takes over from the following Thursday to the next Wednesday, or some other arrangement like that, which is more of a kind of equal footing. But not every parent wants to have the children for an equal amount of time, and it's not always in the best interest of the children for every partner to each partner to have it equal. But if there's a fight about it and both parties seem capable of taking the children for an equal amount of time, then increasingly that's what judges will decide. Now, the smaller the children, the more likely a court is to award more custody to the mother if that's what the mother wants. So, obviously babies that are breastfeeding, there's problems with fathers doing that. It's possible, but and smaller children are more attached to their mothers. If you're talking about teenage children, they'll take their interests, their what they feel into account. But even when there's a fight about it and the parties don't agree, the children can be and sometimes are awarded mostly to the father. Now that will usually happen when there's serious problems with the mother, like the mother's a drug addict or is psychologically unstable in quite a serious way, and then it's judged that the best interest of the children is that the mother doesn't have them all the time. The second situation, which is not as set in stone, but that can sometimes happen, is if the father is just simply in a much richer position and the children are a bit older. Sometimes the children's views are taken into account as well. They're not considered completely incapable of an opinion simply because they're young. But the older they get, the more their interests and opinion are going to be taken into account. Okay, so that's the kind of basic principles of it, but there's much more that I'm going to tell you during the course if you haven't yet purchased the course. And if you have already purchased the course, then in the lectures that follow this one. How does it actually work in children's court? There is a thing called children's court, where children's decision about children's lives, where children actually go to court. And how does that work compared to normal courts? Because it's not like an application in the High Court at all. It's very different. I'm going to tell you how that works. How do access arrangements affect maintenance? So, for example, we were discussing, what if it's 50-50 in terms of the two parties looking after the children? How does that work? Because then you could say, well, they're both paying 50-50, the children are staying with them 50-50, shouldn't there be no maintenance? Shouldn't each party just pay their own amounts? We'll tell you about that. And we're using these phrases, access, custody, guardianship, etc., and not always at the moment entirely precisely like we'll come to use them. But what are they? What do they mean? How do they affect you? What ones do you want to be? What ones don't you want to be? Here's another one. I speak slightly tongue in cheek, but how do you arrange things? How do you arrange your settlement agreements if you really just never want to ever see your ex again? Because it is possible, to arrange it so that sometimes you can pick up and drop at school and pick up from school in such a way as you don't actually see each other. Some people feel like that at a certain stage. Now, if you've already subscribed to the course, as I've said, the next video will give you all this information in the next couple of videos. If not, please subscribe now by hitting the blue button or going to the web page link and going from there. People can say, well, why should I sign up for a course when I can get all this stuff on Google? But really, most of this stuff you can't get on Google because legal people don't give you their best secrets away for free, like IT people sometimes do. And if you do get it, we're talking your children are at stake here. Your hundreds of thousands of rand are at stake. Are you going to gamble all that on some commenter on Google that had a certain experience once that might have been very unique? So this stuff will allow you, if you've got an attorney that you're working with, it will make you get the best out of them. And we do recommend that people use an attorney. And if you're not using an attorney and doing it yourself, this will give you the information you need in order to succeed in matters involving your children. Probably one of the most important things, if not the most important thing in your life. Thank you.